Hi, beautiful souls. Welcome to my channel. My name is Sadhana, and today I'm going to do another deck combination video. We're going to start with the Lili White, which is an amazingly beautiful deck by Celia Millsville. I have quite a few watercolor decks in my collection, and there's just something about watercolor art that feels I don't know, easy for me to read. I love that it is. It's almost like it's not static. It's moving. It's fluid, and I'm not sure if that's what it is. It's the way the colors blend together. It's a style of artwork that for me makes intuitive reading a lot easier, and I absolutely love this deck. The only thing, I will speak about the court cards. I'm going to tell you one thing I don't like about this deck in just a moment. The court cards are really unusual in this deck. And you have, so here we have 3 candles. So this refers to the Queen. So the Queen is the 3rd court card, and candles are for wands. And here she is peering through her golden or red hair. And then we have the branches up at the top for the wands, as well as the crown. Lots of different symbols to read here. You see for the court cards, for the most part, just parts of faces or parts of bodies. So you're really reading off the energy of the court cards. And there is, I want to speak to that card. A couple of things that you should know. One is that with the pages and with the knights, so here is a page. At the top of all of the pages, there is a little heart. So the pages are all meant to speak to the heart chakra. And here we have the Page of Wands. So we have fire and air, because the heart chakra is the element of air. And so you have the option of bringing that in, or any other associations that come up intuitively that have to do with the heart or the healing of the heart space, which is really interesting too, because the pages are traditionally the element of the earth. So you have the potential to bring in 3 different elements with 3 of the pages. Yeah. And then the page of, here's the Page of Pentacles. So here we have earth and traditional element of earth, and then air. And so, yeah, just it's really interesting how she's put that all together. The one I put to the side here was the 7 of Wands. I think this is a really creative 7 of Wands. The eagle here has very intentionally picked up the wands and flown away from a situation that no longer serves, and for some reason or other has needed to, not the wands, the swords, has needed to take the swords with him. However, one has fallen, and that's okay. He's willing to release that sword and continue with full focus toward the light, toward his path, and to stay, I don't know, I really like this 7 of Swords. It speaks loudly. So the thing I don't like about this deck, which reminds me a little bit of the Lumina Tarot, is the females are all young and slim and pretty. So this is not a deck of diversity. The kings are a little bit older, but the females in this deck, lots of buff bodies in this deck as well too, I think. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, it's the only thing that I don't like about this deck is the lack of diversity as far as body shape and size go. Lots of animals in this deck. Yeah, there is the 6 of Swords. The deck that I'm going to pair this deck with is The Animal Spirit by Kim Krans. And why I am pairing these 2 decks together is because there are a lot of chakra associations in this deck as well too. So not only in relation to the element, but there are also in this deck, besides the 4 element suits, so there's 4 suits earth, water, fire, and air. But there also is a suit of ether, which has a very, they're all kind of magical creatures or magical eggs, and they're symbolized by this circle up here. So this suit kind of corresponds with the major arcana, and then the suits that have the element symbols kind of correspond to the, for example, this one would be Earth, so this would correspond to Pentacles, to the minor arcana. So there's lots of different ways to bring in the energy of this deck. Kim Krans, whether you realize it or not, I don't know how carefully you have read her guidebooks. She is quite a wise yogi, and there's lots of brilliant teachings in her guidebooks if you're paying attention. Yeah. So let's do a few readings with these two decks, and I will share with you what I know, my knowledge and my passion, and why I think these two decks are so brilliant and how they work together so well. If you find the animal spirit particularly challenging to work with, I suggest you go back to a recent video that I did on this deck, and that might help you to kind of demystify, because there's no keywords on this deck, and for some people that can be pretty tricky. Okay, so we're starting with the Phoenix. The Phoenix is the first card in the suit of ether, and the Phoenix has a huge amount of representation. So as you know, the Phoenix usually is associated with fire, but in this deck it's associated with the root chakra, so with earth. Kim talks about the bird and its evolution through the 3 lower chakras, and so depending on what cards are here, you have the option of going in a whole bunch of different directions. But of course, this is a very spiritual animal. It is not an animal of this earth plane, of this 3-dimensional plane. Here we have the Star card, which is, very much a card of hope and beauty and a breath of fresh air. And so this breath of fresh air, we can bring into the discussion about, spirituality and the evolution and what's moving forward. And it'd be really nice if this was a card of transformation or something like that. But we have the Devil card. Okay. So I shouldn't say the Devil card is a really, really important card, and we need to look at our grasping of whatever that is in your life, in your work, in your family, and grasping can refer to our addictions, our compulsions. It can refer to certain people. It can refer to all kinds of things. So you really need to get a kind of a big picture when I use that word of grasping, clinging, holding on too tight. What are the things that are very difficult for us to let go of, or the habits that are difficult to break? This card, in this reading, I would encourage the querent to really kind of go back to the family, go back to the roots, go back to childhood, go back to early family celebrations and experiences, and to really start to talk to spirit, to ask for help with releasing whatever it is that you are done with, completely done with. What do you need to toss into the fire and, and burn up and to let go, so that you can, feel the energy of this card here. When I do a 3-card reading, very, very seldom do I read past, present, future, or body, mind, spirit. I try to weave the energy of the 3 cards together so we get a cohesive message that really makes sense. And sometimes I might do 2 oracle cards and a tarot card, but for the most part, I do 2. If I'm doing a 3 card, I'll do 2 tarot and one oracle. So the gazelle is a very graceful creature. The gazelle has a few predators, and in the suit of fire, the gazelle is right about in the middle. So it's the 8th card. There are 14 cards in each of the suits, and they have they're organized in a hierarchy by all kinds of things. You know, development, spiritual development, I suppose, if you will, as well as where they are in the food chain, you know, how many predators they have, that sorts of things. So this is number 8 in fire. But what comes up for the gazelle is the lightness and the grace, and how do we kind of incorporate that lightness and that grace with the element of fire? How can we be fiery and graceful? Here we have the end of the suit of swords. So this is the 10 of swords. And if you look at this deck here, the sword, the 10th sword, if you will, has been damaged. It was unable to pierce the crown chakra without, you know, breaking the sword. It was the energy of the soul, the energy of the whole chakra system was stronger than the ego. The 10 of swords for me, of course, it can be just about a general ending, but remember, swords is about the mind. It's about communication. It's about very, very much about power and taking control. It also has to do with being courageous. A lot of swords cards do not come up if you are not ready to finally work through a bunch of crap. And very seldom do these cards come up when people are just, I don't know, dancing around in, you know, under the veil. I find when you're ready to do the work, the swords are going to appear. And you are ready to kind of move away and step into kind of a lighter way of being. It's time to let go of this heaviness of all that you've been fighting. And for me, this is very much a card of finally, you know, saying to the ego that you are not in charge, that I am a soul having a human experience, and I am willing to come into a greater place of trust. And that, yes, I need my ego. You know, there's a lot of times where that sympathetic nervous system and the ego needs to take charge, but that's not very often. And so this is the end of that. It's the end of that fighting and wrestling. Here we have air, fire, earth. So quite a balanced reading, right? So this kind of painful wrestling experience is moving towards something much more graceful, moving towards balance, but there's still going to be a bit of uneasiness, right? It's not going to, these things don't resolve overnight. And even though this is the 10 and it's the end of the cycle, it's a journey, it's a process. And so continue to really find that grace, find that balance through your connection with the earth, and to knowing that, you don't have to do this alone. The twos are about partnership. The twos are about, the strength of two and not having to be alone. So look to the other for support, because there is strength. This plant only gets stronger by joining the two twines together, and this root, this base is just going to be, grow stronger and stronger. And yes, there's going to be some dynamic between these two elements here, right? There's always a play for balance, but that's natural. That's a natural way of life. So yeah, this is quite an optimistic reading, and I would breathe kind of a sigh of relief when that 10 of Swords comes up. especially I think that was the first, maybe the first card that I turned over. So here we have the hyena. So the hyena is a reminder to check in with your sarcasm. Why are you always, are you one of those people that's very self-deprecating and always putting yourself down, or always making light, making a joke of something? And this card is really very much the time to try to figure out why the heck you are doing that and to stop doing that. You may need to have a look at your dark side, your shadow side, your subconscious, to really understand why it is that you behave that way. The hyena comes up when you need to let that go. So yeah, this is not an easy card in any deck. This is the Five of Pentacles. It is winter. There's a sense, there's a chill in the air. Two of the Pentacles you see the shape of the heart here, right? So this is not a card of hopelessness. This is a card of, looking to resources, looking to strengths that are available. Like you don't have to feel like you're all alone. This sense of sarcasm and constant joking or putting yourself down, that you don't have to feel like this, right? You need to understand that there are people, there are resources available for you to help you work through it feels very isolated, right? It feels lonely, and you don't have to feel that way. Really beautiful card here. So the Empress is encouraging you to kind of look to the Divine Mother, look to your mother, look to your aunts, your sisters for support. The Empress card here has her back to this behavior. She is sick and tired of you behaving this way. It's time for you to kind of embrace the energy of femininity, of the strength of your, whatever the skills are that you have, those feminine skills that you have not been embodying, like finding your strength, finding your grace from resources that you haven't been using, because they are there for you. Whether you're a man or a woman, you have these skills. You have the strength of the Empress. She is a leader as well, too. Don't forget that, right? She is, she's the partner of the Emperor. So super powerful woman. And this, I've already said that it's time to stop putting yourself down. Hyena, fortunately, is looking towards the Empress, and the Empress is just done with this behavior. I said I don't usually read past, present, future, but it's kind of nice that this card is behind the hyena. And so I would look to that as, a positive interaction between these two cards here. Let's do one more. Okay, so starfish, element of water, so we can look to intuition, emotions, all kinds of things. One of the things that comes up for me with this card is all of this kind of sacred geometry here. Very, very kind of complex creature for a creature that doesn't move much, right? Starfish, they tend to stay in one position, and they also have to be very, very strong. When the tide goes out, they need to be able to survive, right? And a lot of their time is spent in hiding in the darkness, much like the octopus. Just for your information, the starfish, I made myself a little chart. I'm not doing this all by memory. So in the element of water, the starfish is number 4. Okay, so fairly early in the suit of water. So we have emotions, and we have the Three of Swords. So for me, the Three of Swords, and I'm not going to go right away to the heart, right away to the element of, pain and sorrow, but pain and sorrow of the heart we need to go to the element. Oh, and I didn't talk about this with this deck. This is something that's very, very brilliant. So the heart is the fourth chakra, the element of air. And the swords traditionally are the element of air. In this deck, we have lots of animals of the air in this suit. And we have the incense sticks in, I believe, every single card. And so we have 3 incense with the smoke from the incense as well as the swords. Incense, for me, the smoke represents the element of ether. So in this deck, the combination of ether and air makes this a very, very heady, challenging suit to work with. So we need to really, when these sword cards come up, give them, due consideration, because there's a lot going on with these cards. The bird here is, I believe, looking toward the sun. So we have kind of a positive, fiery energy up here. There's a lot of gray paint, smoke, grief around the heart. The middle sword is pierced right through the center of the heart. Okay, and then the smoke follows each of the swords. So what is this about? And then we have the Fool card, which represents a new beginning. So it's really, really important. If this card is about hiding the starfish, right? Because the starfish spends a lot of time hiding and very much as a defensive position. So if you have not been processing your sadness, processing your grief, if you have been kind of in denial or in hiding about what it is you need to let go of, it's really important to kind of recognize that and to see that, because in order for you to move forward, that's going to have to be faced, right? You can't stay in hiding about that. Yeah. So what lies ahead is an opportunity to start fresh. But don't discount that this feels incomplete at this time. These 2 decks, I just think they work really, really well together, and I could do many, many more pairs for you, but I want to bring something else into this video. The other deck I'm going to bring forward, which is it's like night and day, is the Deviant Moon. This is another deck that I know either people, they love it or they're terribly confused by it. One of the things that I gifted to myself was Patrick Valenza's coffee table book. It's a beautiful book that takes you through his journey with creating not only this deck, but the steps before this deck, what happened before this deck. I have not read it cover to cover. It's a lot of information to take in, but it really gives you a good amount of background information about the Deviant Moon and Patrick's journey in creating his decks. This deck is kind of unusual, right? And because of the nature of this deck, I'm looking to, for most of the time, to what hasn't been revealed, subconscious kind of stuff, or what is just below the surface that needs to come forth. And so for that reason, this deck I often pair with moon decks. So any deck that has the name Moon in it, any of your favorite moon decks, are going to bring something out of the Deviant Moon. Because when we're working with the moon, we're working with things that we have chosen not to look at. Whether that is conscious or unconscious, right? Sometimes those things are just below the surface, and other times they're buried so deep, they're going to be there until we die. But if you are doing this work, and if you look at the tarot as a way to heal, a way to work through your stuff, then maybe, you know, you can unearth some of this. Oh, I should show you this deck first. So this is not one deck. This is actually 3 decks. This is my collection of the 3 Oracle of Oddities. If you go to Claire Goodchild's website, Black and the Moon, she is, there's a couple of decks that are coming up, or maybe they're already out for print. I really like using these decks. I call it deck because it's actually 3, with the Deviant Moon, because it's kind of an odd deck. So we kind of have, you know, an odd deck. It's very useful to look at the actual body parts. If you know anything about the flora or the fauna, those are always good cues. And there's often moons and suns and other symbols that will give you a cue where to look at in the Deviant Moon Tarot. I have removed all of the chakra cards as well as the duplicate cards. So in Oracle of Oddities 1, 2, 3, there are a few duplicate cards. And yeah, this is a deck I use with yoga and Reiki students, just to stir up conversation, to have a look at some, you know, things that we're working on. But this is I don't know, for me, this is quite a specialty deck, but it does work with the Deviant Moon. So let's do a couple of draws. All right. And then maybe I will get another moon deck as well too, and I'll show you. So we have duality is the keyword. And we have quite different energy on the left hand as to the right hand. So remember, the left side is the yin, the feminine energy. The right side is the masculine energy. Duality speaks to the opposite of oneness, right? So perhaps being too attached to one side or the other, and what that represents. So masculine, feminine, just the kind of, you know, this could be too much second chakra stuff. This could be too much imbalance in the third chakra. But let's see what we've got in the tarot cards. So we have the 9 of Swords. And the 9 of Swords is facing away from the Oracle card. And the scary little cat down at the bottom is looking right towards the duality. So what's going on, right? What's on your mind? Why are you so preoccupied with duality? Maybe it's about identity. You know, why are you preoccupied with that? Regardless of the deck, this card, it's really, really important to understand just how much, too much in the mind. This card is so out of whack, so out of balance, and it requires a great deal of coaching to kind of bring this person down. Just saying that, yes, you know, when the curtains open, when the sun comes up, everything's going to be better. Well, it's not, because tomorrow night is going to be exactly the same unless you're willing to deal with this and acknowledge whatever this is. I know I mentioned about the ego and the connection to the Suit of Swords in the previous deck. It's really an important question to ask. It might just be about being too much in the mind. It could also be about something to do with communication and painful communication, a painful, repetitive habit that just hasn't. And look here, so this person's hand is in the mouth. They're, you know, biting the mouth. So I really want to go to communication here. The Page of Pentacles has his or her back to the 9 of Swords. So there's like complete, it's just kind of reinforces the central card. So we have duality here, and there's absolutely no communication here. So this is a card of an opportunity to kind of step forward with, I don't know, maybe we could keep this really simple. Maybe this is about going back to school and you're scared to freaking death about going back to school. You know, we don't have to make this overly complicated, but these two aspects of self need to come together, because this is what's causing the friction, the confusion, the feeling of being desperate and hopeless. So because you have a wonderful opportunity here, and why are you ignoring it? So it's really important to engage in that conversation. Okay, let's do one more, and then I'm going to get a moon deck and I'll pull it here. So we have toxic. So we have the lungs here completely black. So we can go to the heart chakra. We can go to the element of air. We can ask, where is the toxicity? Where, why, how has it grown? How has it developed? Why? We can also, I'm sure this is a toxic plant here. I'm not sure what it is, but we can assume all of the symbology on this is toxic. Judgment. Normally I don't go to judgment for judgment. That's not my go-to for this card, but are you just being too judgy? Are you not allowing yourself to move forward with something? What has created this toxicity? The Knight of Cups here is, so is this about too much of the wrong kind of emotion? What's gone kind of sick with your emotions? I don't know. There's something here. There's some kind of relationship. There's some kind of, I'm definitely going to say people in your life. And perhaps the Knight of Cups represents a toxic relationship. The Knight of Cups in his shadow can be a master manipulator of emotions. So are you finding yourself in a relationship where you feel manipulated? And remember that this is not necessarily masculine energy, but very much it's a knight, right? So it's stronger energy, controlling of the emotions. And, so very, very important to look at that. Look at the blacks and see if that speaks to you. You can go down here to, the other symbols and the shells. And the shells represent the air of the water. So are you listening to your heart? Are you actually listening to what is in these messages that are coming through the Knight of Cups? And what is this all about? Looks to me like your support system is giving you a message loud and clear that it's time to end this relationship. As I said many times before, when you're doing these demo readings and you don't have a particular question, it can be really confusing. So if something is coming up here for you that I'm not seeing, please go with that. So like I said, you want to choose an oracle deck with the Deviant Moon that is not going to it's not going to sugarcoat whatever's going on. It's really important. Like, I would never put a hug deck with the Deviant Moon, because that's not what the Deviant Moon is about. Yeah. Okay, so let's switch this up. And here is another example of a deck that's going to work really well with the Deviant Moon, because it has the potential to, it doesn't pull any punches, this deck either. So this is Anna Turian's Oracle of Echoes. Very, very, I know it's a very popular oracle deck. Many of you probably have this deck. If you don't, I cannot recommend this deck highly enough. So let's just put this here. Oh, the backs look so pretty together. Okay. So we have Beyond the Veil. This is exactly what I mean about this deck. So this card here is going to tell us what it is we haven't been facing, what it is we have been unwilling to move through, or what we've been avoiding, or that kind of thing. Like, the veil refers to Maya in Sanskrit. to the illusion or the delusion. And here we have death. So death is facing the veil. Ace of Pentacles. So, boys and girls, yes, yeah. If this was in a business reading, pretty loud and clear that, yeah, it's time to leave that miserable job and to move forward to that new opportunity. Sometimes it's just so very loud and clear, and both death and the dragon and the Ace of Pentacles are are moving forward into the future, if you will, or to this side of the reading, which is really about moving forward. Okay, let's do one more. Creativity. So very much a lighter card. And creativity refers to second chakra stuff. So creativity can refer to birth. It can refer to a new endeavor, a new idea. It can refer to, just, getting off your butt and starting to do something. But it can also refer to, strong feminine energy. So the waters of the womb, the mother, healing through bathing, healing through connecting to, the ocean. Possibly, usually creativity, yeah, I'm going to stick with the element of water here. So very watery energy. Here we have swords energy and swords energy. So we're definitely moving through, these feel very kind of masculine. This feels very, very feminine. So something is coming into balance, and you've already been through the worst of it, and now you are choosing courageously to move forward. So lean into your feminine side, lean into your softer side as you move forward. You see this character here, this transportation, this mode of transportation is moving toward this softer feminine energy, and just allow whatever this is to develop, because it's exactly where you need to go. The King of Swords is there to remind you to not only speak your truth, to be your truth, to stand up for what you believe in. So you've already done that, and leaving the Five of Swords behind, you've already done that. But the King of Swords I see here more as a reminder to, continue to stand up for yourself, because we do tend to repeat the same things over and over again. The other reason that these two decks work really well together is that even though this is kind of for the most part a lighter deck, the colors kind of blend together. I'll do one more just so you can see. Right, so we kind of have these sepia tones. The last card, I know that white and darkness worked really well together. There's a lot of red in this deck. There's a lot of red in this deck. So we have the Hierophant, the ancestors. So we're looking to the teachings of the ancestors. So in order to complete the cycle, in order to kind of wind this up into really, like let's suppose we were talking about divorce or something like that. Like, let's go really kind of messy here. So suppose you're winding up the end of a relationship. You've come to the, after spending many, many years with somebody, you need to kind of go back, and there's some really important messages, things that you have forgotten, perhaps, that maybe there was a letter from your grandmother, maybe there was some, even some rituals from the church that you shared as a family that you gave up as part of this relationship that you were in. I mean, that's just what came up for me, and there's so many different ways I could go, but it's easy. It's so much easier to talk and to to share and to dialogue about the cards if you have the right oracle deck with the right tarot deck. And also the reason I was going with divorce was that, you know, we've got two major arcana cards here, right? So this is a really significant reading, like something really big is going on. And I just kind of felt that pull to talk about that. So yeah. So I hope this has been of some use to you. And as always, I look forward to your comments, and I enjoy the feedback back and forth after the videos come out. So I wish you well, stay well. Let me know if there's any other decks that you would like that you need help pairing with, and I'd be happy to include those in a future video. Bye for now. Namaste.